But I like pizza a lot, and I wanted to figure out how big this pizza was. So we spoke to Superdata Research, and really that market for kids' apps, that is apps that have been designed for under 13s, is at the high end about $1.7 billion in 2013, at the low end about $1.2 billion. Now that doesn't include things like Clash of Clans or Candy Crush, but it does include the Talking Toms and the, let's say, some of the other types of kids' entertainment and games apps. So it's quite a big piece. The other thing is, now we're generally work with paid apps. So I'm going to share with you some split across those channels. And this is how there's a promo code if anybody wants to grab it. This is how our revenues basically split out for the last 6 months. It's about 76% on the Apple platform, about 15% on Google Play, and about 9% on Amazon. So, you know, we spend a lot of attention on the Apple platform. There are some interesting anomalies which we'll get to that later. I mean, Google Play that's really not the full extent of the Android marketplace, or also the vanilla Google Play marketplace, but we'll get to that towards the end. But let's have a look at that in a little bit more detail. Oh, sorry, one other thing I want to say to you is that pie is a little bit different depending on the type of app. So, for example, with Apple, with this app, which was Chuggington, which we released, Apple accounts only for about 54% of the sales of that, but Amazon accounts for 33%, and Google Play is around about the same level. And that is because Amazon is a great cross-merchandiser. Chuggington is a very popular children's television, toy, book brand. And Amazon, if you really want to succeed, bring branded, multiple merchandisable category apps to Amazon, and you can do very, very well there. So that's one of the reasons why it went so well. There was a natural cross-promotion on the Amazon platform. But now I'm going to talk a little bit about Apple's kids category and why that came about. And we're onto the C now. Hands up, who's familiar with COPPA? Who's had to implement COPPA? Yeah. Right. So I think there's a few things happened or started to happen around about this time last year, and one was the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. Specifically, it had been around for quite some time to deal with the online privacy space, but it got extended very explicitly into mobile apps in last year. And I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time talking about COPPA. If anybody wants to have a look, my slide deck is the presentation from Casual Connect, which I gave on monetizing kids' apps, that's the URL for it. But COPPA actually has nothing to do with monetization. It has only to do with personally identifiable information, getting verifiable parental consent if you want to actually be able to sell something to a child, with your privacy policy and your statement, and then how you deal with data retention and deletion. So there's a full presentation on that. That was one of the factors that I believe drove Apple to create the kids category. Another factor was these headlines. I love this one. The dad had to sell his car and 2 motorcycles to pay for the kids' in-application purchases. This was the kind of bad press that was happening across the app stores. This one as well. That was happening across the app stores around about this time last year. We're still seeing a lot of it, and whether it's $2,000 or $6,000 or £4,000, there was a lot of negative publicity around about the ease of which children were able to access we all know it's the parents' responsibility, but the parents said, well, it must have saved my password. This can't happen, but of course the customer is always right. So we started to see a lot of these kind of headlines last year. This is the dad in question. You see what he's playing? Playing My Horse. So he looks so serious. But Apple gave him the money back, in fairness to them. So this was another driving factor behind the creation of the kids category. And the kids category is, well, what's it about? Well, firstly, Apple described it as a curated selection of children's apps. They're graded by age. They are COPPA compliant. They all have clear privacy statements. They have particular restrictions around collection of data, around ads, and all of the outbound links are gated. Somebody once said to me, it's kind of like the good old days of the Java games. Who was in the Java games world? Right, okay, wow. God, I'm feeling old. So it's kind of like the good old days in some ways, in that there's a gatekeeper, the content is selected, it's not a free-for-all, and I don't necessarily agree, but it has been a good thing for certainly the creators of paid apps in the kids industry. The composition of the store, this is the page, it is like a mini app store within the app store. The composition is entertainment, early learning, education, there's a lot of brand in there. There's about 400 apps per listing, so that's quite restricted when you compare it to other app store categories. And those apps are hand selected by unknown criteria by Apple. Apple say that they put a great emphasis on quality, and I think we do see that. That's the quality dog that he's not, unfortunately doesn't work in Story Toys, but we like him a lot. And so Apple do look to see what sort of reviews or reputation a developer has, or an app has, or a brand has. And that quality does drive further reviews and placement in the App Store. One of the key things about the kids category is it is curated in age ranges. So you've got 0 to 5, 6 to 8, and 9 to 11. And that's sort of good, but it's really difficult if you're like us and you made apps that suited a 4 to 7-year-old basis, because you end up having to categorize them as either under 5s or categorize them as 6 to 8. So it's not without its flaws, but it's good to be able to put that category on the App Store. I mentioned something as well, another criteria that when you're submitting, when you choose your age range for your app as you submit it, the other thing that Apple will look for is outbound links. Do you have outbound links that are accessible by children? And Apple have introduced something called gating. They ask that you will gate any outbound links that children can access. So instead of being reliant entirely on the parental password, i.e. the iTunes password before you buy something, you actually have to add another link, and it takes different forms. In R, we tend to use a 2-finger swipe. So it's in writing. We assume that the child can't read. Certainly we would assume that a 2-year-old can't read, and that parents only swipe up with 2 fingers to proceed, therefore cannot get to the password section, and that's why we do that. There's another promo code for one of our apps. So, and they're some of the basic criteria of working in the App Store, and the kids category in the App Store. I guess I was talking to some other people about these slides which have evolved over the week, and I was asked to mention user acquisition, which was great because I was finding a problem finding a word for you. I think one of the key things with the kids category in the App Store certainly is the prevalence of paid apps. And paid apps makes user acquisition quite difficult. It is very hard to get engaged in paid UA when you're dealing with fixed-priced apps and you're not running an ARPPU model like ourselves. It is possible to run ARPPU-based models with kids' content, but it's very, very difficult to do it with paid apps. So I said I'd talk a little bit about user acquisition, and I guess one of the key things you need to know is that parents buy and children consume, so you have to appeal to the parent first and foremost if you want to get them past that gateway, and then ensure that the content is engaging enough for the child so that the child will continue to want to play the game ongoing. But user acquisition is a trickier prospect. Organic brand marketing, Facebook, they all have an important part to play, but unfortunately it's quite difficult for a kids app provider to spend $50,000 on a Fixu campaign for paid apps. They just will not see the return. So you do see a lot of organic. Most of your installs will come on an organic basis. And by that I really mean non-paid or incentivized. So getting a direct marketing strategy is very, very important. And also getting a brand marketing strategy is very, very important, particularly for M, which is mommy bloggers. And there are many, many routes, and M is also for marketing. There are many routes. There's lots of different blogs out there that will cover your apps. You can reach moms through Facebook. You can reach them through Twitter. Television is also quite, particularly direct response TV is actually a pretty good way of acquiring users, something we're starting to experiment with. And then there's other more general kids app sites like Apps Playground, which is run by Stuart Dredge, who also writes for The Guardian, so you can get good coverage that way. Unfortunately, still the biggest driver of growth for kids apps in the kids category is featuring. It is the most effective driver of paid app installs. And for featuring, people often ask me, how do we get featured so often, or how do we get featured at all? My answer to them is generally make a great app that can sell iPads. Apple are a merchandiser of hardware, not a software. They're not a software store. They have the store to support the sales of iPhones and iPads. And of course, then the effective featuring. This is probably Chuggington. Looking at the date, you can see September 9th we launched. September 11th in the UK we got main stage featuring. So again, straight into the top 10 of the top overall apps in the UK. The kids category did introduce new featuring opportunities, particularly in the form of bricks. These are not common really in the game space, but one of the nice things that you can do in the kids category, or that you may be invited to do if you're selling kids apps, is submit assets to create a brick. And a brick it's like a mini promo, and you saw them all over that kids category page. You can see them for individual apps, or you can see them for publishers. And a brick tends to lead to what's known as a room. And a room is your own branded app store within the app store. And that is a fantastic facility to have, because that has a permanent URL, and you can point users to all of your apps in one go, and you can actually build brand awareness through the use of a room. It has a URL. That's the shortcode to it. So why don't you visit ours, and while you're there, why don't you buy all of our stuff? But you can see it. It's actually, depending on where you are, for the moment, I think it's visible in the US App Store and the UK App Store, German App Store. It's not visible in all app stores. It'd be interesting to see if you can access this. So, you're acquiring users through featuring, you're acquiring users through marketing, through organic methods, and then the key thing is cross-promotion. Because really the best marketing tool that you have is every other app that you've ever made. And every app that you launch that only serve to sell every app that you've made in the past. And we've worked very, very hard on getting a cross-promotion strategy right. We used to run a screen that looked like this. It was quite intrusive. Whenever the app returned from background, it would display this screen. We weren't told, but we kind of knew that Apple didn't really like it. It was very, very effective, though. But ultimately, it was blocking us from making progress with featuring. So we changed, and we introduced a new cross-promotional platform, which is much more subtle. This is just simulated because I don't have my iPad plugged in. And it just pops up a nice little bookshelf along the bottom. And that bookshelf can be used to launch all of the books that we have, or all of the books that we've released in the past, or it can be used to go to the store. And of course, if you go to the store, you'll hit the gating. But it's been quite effective. And when I get to M, which I think is for metrics, we'll show you some data from that. Also on user acquisition, I worked hard on this one, hustlers. We heard from Fixo earlier on that there's more than 945 ad tech companies out there at the moment. I think I have had multiple emails from every single one of them. The problem is we're just very, very hard to engage with these companies in a COPPA-compliant way, and very hard to engage with them with paid content. So we get the usuals. We get it says, yeah, we can deliver you whatever, promises, promises, promises. And we can get the ones, we deliver you 100 reviews on the App Store, we'll deliver you 1,000 reviews in the App Store. It's just noise, as far as I'm concerned. We did some early trials back when the App Store ranking algorithms were a little bit different. We did some early trials back then, some mixed results. Ranking algorithms change, then you don't get the results anymore. Just work hard. I say, if you can get your own cross-promotional strategy working, great. But I really don't think that anybody will be able to deliver you a paid UA strategy that will be properly COPPA compliant and will deliver high-value users to you. So I said in my description of my talk, I would also talk about winners and losers. And I think, yeah, everybody's a winner. It's hard to think of anybody that has been producing quality apps in the kids space that hasn't been a winner with the kids category. And I'm just going to show you the impact of the category on us. I mean, it's delivered us nearly a consistent threefold increase in sales since June last year. So I'm pretty happy with that. It's tremendous. It's that's our revenues, but it's accelerated our downloads of our free content by about 10x as well. V, of course, also stands for venture capital. This is a thin sector or category of the App Store. There are not that many profitable ventures. I think one of the few ones is probably in the room and in the kids app space. So you kind of have to make sure that you can get into this for the long haul. Losers, there's plenty of losers. I think low quality apps. A lot of the mom and pop shops that might have apps that they launched and hope for the best, and have not resubmitted for the kids category, so therefore fallen out of the kids category. And also those with very aggressive IAP strategies. Yes, we'd all like to be able to make a lot of money from selling currency in kids apps. It's just a no-no, it seems, in the kids app store anyway, in the kids category. So we don't see apps like this. That's the core of the presentation. I think I have 2 or 3 minutes left to go through everything but the kitchen sink, which I couldn't find, so I had to use a bath. And I think a key one here, and Steve from Swerve will recognize some of these screenshots, data and metrics. So I put it under D. This was, by the way, this is the impact of us introducing a new cross-promotion, which I think we introduced on early in December. This is on our Rapunzel app, and you can see the number of clicks out that we're getting. So cross-promotion will be the most effective user acquisition strategy that you have. And then other things like metrics. Metrics are, if you're not building in either the limited version of Flurry or a sophisticated platform like Swerve into your app from the get-go, you might as well be just like setting out a stall in a flea market and saying, hey, buy my apps. You will not get the data that you need to know to optimize your cross-promotion and ensure that your content can be maximized in terms of sales. A couple of last slides. Key one I always talk about is global. Localization is hugely important. We have only one app that we haven't localized, and that's because it's a singing app. And that's the sales breakdown. And this is a breakout by territory by localization. 90% of the sales of this app happen in English-speaking territories. If I look at our apps that are heavily localized, we suddenly have, like in Germany, we have a huge market. In Spain, we have a big market. France, we have a big market. This is not a distribution of revenues. This is actually, these are incremental revenues that we make by having our apps localized. It costs us about $1,000 per language to localize our app. That includes a full voiceover. It includes all of our App Store localizations. It includes a full buyout of rights for the voice actors. It is well worth it. We will make that tenfold, at least, even in the smaller categories. So on to why. I couldn't find something with why, but I put a yak up there and a couple of promo codes. So if you want to grab those ones quickly, take a picture. And if anybody has a word for why, I would really, really appreciate it. And don't say youth, because this is about kids. So maybe come up to me at the end. And down to the last letter, Z. This is really, really interesting. And this relates back to Google earlier on. So the first, the red piece there is 2%, and the blue piece is 98%. Does anybody know what that is? No. Yes and no. The red is revenue on Google's. The rest is piracy. So for every 50 activations, apps that we see, new installs of our apps on the Google platform, 49 of them are pirated. So it's a pretty significant issue in the industry, and a very, very hard one to address in the paid content space. Easier in the free-to-play space, very, very hard one. So that is our Z. Finally, I forgot S. Story Toys. We make kids apps. You can visit our store. We generally work with a book type format, although we have introduced some music apps recently. And again, that's our store, our room on the App Store. Something which we've just announced in the last couple of days is that we've licensed the rights for Eric Carle and Friends. So we'll be producing apps based on the Very Hungry Caterpillar, and the first one will be crawling onto the App Store on March 20th. So watch out for that. And I think that is my 20 minutes. So thank you for listening. If anybody who's figured out what letter I missed? Yeah, okay. Well, come up to me at the end. I've got a bunch of promo codes. We're at a bunch of shows over the next while if anybody's there. And I just want to say there's a couple of really, really interesting ones coming up in the kids space. These are all good shows, like Digital Kids in New York. Bologna Children's Book Fair is fantastic. Just Our Magic, and Kids Want Mobile, which is happening in Berlin this summer. So happy to take any questions. I'm sorry that we're so quick fire, but there's a lot of letters in the alphabet, a lot more than I thought.
Great, thank you so much for this presentation. Any questions?
Hal, thanks. Nice presentation. I was wondering, you were telling about that little store you have in the App Store.
Yeah.
Showing your app portfolio. Has there been contact with Apple beforehand? Were you chosen?
Yes.
Or?
Yeah. we were asked for a specific set of promo assets. We had seen these appear quite some time back. We'd seen them appear for some of our competitors. And I mean competitors, I mean like Bonnier and Disney, and we were curious about them. And then we saw more and more of them appear. We suggested, I mean, we do talk regularly to Apple and all of our channels. We had suggested that it would be a great thing to have, to aspire to have at some point. And yes, the assets were requested for us at one point.
Right, okay, thanks.
Hi. You've mentioned that there is basically no in-app purchase in the kids section.
No, that's not true. There's plenty of in-app purchase in the kids section.
I mean that you said that it's basically we won't see the normal in-app purchase items in the kids section.
So can I just clarify that? And I should have made the distinction. In-app purchases are fine. In-app currency-based models tend to be rejected because in-app currency-based models they don't have a price. They could result in unlimited spend. Discrete unlockable features, such as in our apps, you buy the story for $3.99, and then there's another $2.99 worth of additional features, such as jigsaw puzzles and sticker books. That's acceptable. But if we were to say, look, every time you wanted to read the book, you had to put some money in, and run a currency model, that would get rejected.
Okay, I see.
I actually have a question. You've mentioned a lot of challenges, but there's definitely a raising awareness and interest in this category. What could the app stores do to help you better?
Well, the kids category.
Right. That's a big step, and you...
Yeah, and Google Play for Education, I think, is also a very important one. I think you do find that things like, for example, if you walk into an app store, you'll find one of our apps on the display iPad. They do try to help. They try to help those developers that can produce content that can help sell devices. They have dedicated resources in education. As you know, Apple made a big announcement last year about iPads into the Los Angeles school system. So they want to ensure that high-quality content is created. It's a tough space. The kids space is a tough space. One of the issues with the kids space is it's quite easy to get into it. It's quite easy. We saw what I describe as mom and pop shops. It's very easy to make $100 a week. And $100 a week to some people, to make an app in their spare time is great. But what it does, it results in a lot of different content on the App Store. And it results in a huge dilution of the number of slots available. So I think even just the creation of the kids App Store in its own right, of the kids category in its own right, was a huge boost to the industry. Well, it was a threefold in revenues boost to the industry for us, which is big. And we'll see. I'm surprised we haven't seen a kids category on Google Play yet, but we have seen Google Play for Education. I think Amazon have their free time service as well, which is good. It's obviously a subscription-based model, so it's a very small revenue share, but they're working that way. I mean, I think they really only turned their minds to it properly in the last year.
Cool. We have one more question over there.
I just want to ask about when I see the look and feel of your product, it's look for childish, like 4, maximum to 8, right? So is it different from 8 and up? Would you think it have to be a different strategy because they can read, they can understand a lot more?
In terms of the aging?
Yes.
So I tell you what, you have to actually look at patterns of children's content consumption, and up to the age of about 3 years old, parents prescribe the content that children consume. And from 3 to 6 years old, or 3 to 7, where you have parent-child consensus, where the parents and the children together decide on what they want to watch. So the child has some influence, but the parent still buys. From about 8 years old up, children start to move into peer-recommended content, where they hear about things in the playground, and they don't want to do the things that their parents want them to do. So you have to be, for us, we can't afford to market to that group. We're a small Irish startup. We can't afford to, create a network effect in a playground in schools. So our aging decision hasn't been about the look and feel of our apps. It's actually been about, can we address the market through their parents? Because we know we can address the market through parents quite easily. But once they're maybe 8 or 9 years old, they start making their own decisions, and the marketing budgets go right up there.
All right. Thank you so much, Barry.